I was staring at the quarterly performance spreadsheet, red pen in hand, highlighting a revenue projection that made no damn sense when our division head Carl Brennan walked into the conference room. He carried his coffee mug, the one with "World's Greatest Boss" that his kids had given him, and wore that particular smug smile that usually meant someone was about to get royally screwed. The quarterly review meeting had been running for 2 hours. Standard corporate theater. PowerPoint slides full of metrics that everyone already knew. Discussions about synergies and optimization opportunities, and the usual ass-kissing from middle management hoping to secure their next promotion. "Before we wrap up today's session," Carl announced, tapping his pen against his mug like some kind of corporate dinner bell, "I want to share some exciting news about this quarter's performance bonus allocation." I didn't look up immediately. After 18 years at Pinnacle Systems, I knew this dance better than my wedding waltz. My team had absolutely demolished every metric that mattered. We'd brought in $2, $3 million in new contracts, a company record for a single quarter. We'd exceeded our sales targets by 73%, maintained a 98% client retention rate, and somehow managed to do it all while the marketing department was going through their third restructuring of the year. The $65,000 performance bonus wasn't just expected, it was mathematically inevitable. Hell, I'd already had 3 conversations with Linda about it. Katie's junior year tuition at State was due next month, and we'd finally be able to tackle that roof repair that had been temporarily covered with blue tarps for the past 8 months. I'd earned every penny of that bonus through late nights, weekend client calls, and more corporate bullshit than any human should have to endure in a single lifetime. Then Carl said the name that would change everything. Congratulations to Tommy Mitchell for his outstanding contribution this quarter and his well-deserved recognition. My red pen stopped moving mid-stroke. Tommy Mitchell, 24 years old, fresh out of Ohio State with a business degree and enough enthusiasm to power a small city. He'd been with the company for exactly 93 days. I knew because I'd been the one tasked with onboarding him. This was the same kid who still couldn't figure out how to format client proposals without walking over to my desk every 30 minutes. The same kid who'd asked me last week if Q4 meant quality level 4 or quarter 4. And the same kid who'd somehow managed to schedule a client presentation for Columbus Day because he forgot it was a holiday. I looked up from my spreadsheet to see Tommy's face go completely pale. His mouth was hanging open like someone had just told him he'd won the lottery while simultaneously being struck by lightning. "Wait, seriously?" he stammered, his voice cracking slightly as he looked around the room like this was some elaborate office prank. Are you sure about that?" It wasn't a prank. Carl's smile was getting wider by the second. Carl launched into a speech about fresh perspectives, innovative thinking, and the importance of nurturing emerging talent. Corporate buzzword bingo at its finest. Meanwhile, I sat there watching $65,000 walk away with a kid who'd needed my help just yesterday to understand the difference between gross and net revenue. The room erupted in polite applause, the kind of forced enthusiasm you see at company picnics and mandatory team-building exercises. I noticed Sarah Williams, my senior account manager, wasn't clapping either. Neither was Bill Rodriguez from operations. They were both staring at Carl like he'd just announced that gravity was optional. I didn't clap. I was too busy running calculations in my head, trying to figure out what kind of parallel universe I'd stumbled into where 3 months of asking basic questions somehow trumped 18 years of consistent performance. After the meeting dispersed, Tommy approached me like a guilty puppy who'd just chewed up his owner's favorite shoes. His face was flushed, and he kept running his hand through his hair, a nervous tic I'd noticed during his first week. "Jim, I swear to God I had no idea this was coming," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You should have gotten that bonus, man. Everyone knows you're the backbone of this entire division. Hell, you're the reason half our clients stay with Pinnacle in the first place." I studied his face carefully. The kid looked genuinely uncomfortable, maybe even a little sick. His eyes were darting around like he expected someone to jump out and tell him it was all a mistake. "It's not your fault, Tommy," I said, and I meant it. "Congratulations. You must have impressed somebody upstairs." But even as I said the words, something was nagging at me. This wasn't just unfair, it was mathematically impossible. Performance bonuses at Pinnacle were supposed to be based on a strict algorithm. Sales numbers, client retention, team productivity metrics. Tommy's name shouldn't have even appeared on the list, let alone at the top. That night, I called my brother Mike, who managed a regional office for one of our smaller competitors. Mike had always been my sounding board for workplace politics. He had a way of cutting through corporate bullshit that I'd always admired. "They gave my bonus to a rookie," I told him, pacing around my kitchen while Linda finished loading the dishwasher. 65 grand, Mike. Just handed it over to a kid who's been here 3 months. Jesus Christ, Jim. That's not just unfair, that's completely insane. What are your numbers looking like this quarter? I rattled off the statistics. Mike was quiet for a long moment. Somebody needs to file a complaint with HR, he finally said. This smells like discrimination or favoritism or some kind of policy violation. You've got documentation, right? Of course I've got documentation. But Mike, this feels like more than just a bad decision. This feels deliberate. And that's when I started paying attention to things I should have noticed months ago. The next morning, I started watching Carl and Tommy more carefully. Not in a creepy stalker way, just paying attention to interactions I'd previously written off as normal workplace dynamics. They had this easy familiarity that didn't make sense for a division head and a 3-month employee. During the morning coffee ritual, they'd share these knowing looks and inside references that went completely over everyone else's heads. Tommy would mention something about the old Walmart parking lot, and Carl would laugh like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. Or Carl would reference that crazy ice storm in 09, and Tommy would nod along like he'd been there. I started keeping a mental list. Coach Patterson's retirement party. The Miller farm getting sold. Remember when they tore down the drive-in theater? These weren't the conversations you have with someone you met 3 months ago during a corporate hiring process. The breakthrough came during lunch on Wednesday. I'd suggested we grab burgers at O'Malley's Pub, the greasy dive bar 3 blocks from the office that served the best cheeseburgers in the city. Tommy was telling me about his college experience, typical stuff about dorm life, football games, graduation parties. "Where'd you grow up before college?" I asked, just making conversation while I worked on my bacon cheeseburger. "Millfield," he said, taking a bite of his mushroom Swiss. "Little town in Ohio. Population maybe 3,000 on a good day. I guarantee you've never heard of it. Millfield." The name hit me like a lightning bolt. 2 weeks earlier, I had been walking past Carl's corner office around 4:30, heading to the elevator, when I heard him on what sounded like a personal call. He was using his speakerphone, a habit that drove everyone in the office crazy, and talking way too loud, as usual. "I know, Mom, I know," he'd been saying. "I'll try to make it home for your birthday this year." I miss the old neighborhood in Millfield. Nothing ever changes there, does it? "Mrs. Henderson still running the post office?" "Yeah, I figured. Some things never change. Same goddamn town. Population 3,000. That evening, I did what any reasonable person would do in the age of social media. I went hunting. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, the digital paper trail that everyone leaves behind whether they realize it or not. It took me about 20 minutes to find what I was looking for. A photo from Tommy's Instagram account posted about 6 months ago during what looked like a high school reunion or town festival. The caption read, "Great seeing everyone back home in Millfield. Some things never change, #smalltown, #homecoming." In the background of the photo, barely visible but definitely recognizable, was Carl Brennan. He was about 15 years younger and 30 pounds lighter, but it was definitely him. He was wearing a Millfield high school t-shirt and had his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. The pieces weren't just clicking, they were slamming together like freight trains. Armed with this new information, I started digging deeper into Carl's hiring and promotion patterns over the past 2 years. What I found was a masterclass in systematic nepotism that would have made a Tammany Hall politician proud. I pulled performance data from our company's internal database, nothing confidential, just the publicly available metrics that anyone with my access level could review. The pattern was so obvious I couldn't believe I'd missed it for 2 years. Every single promotion, bonus allocation, and choice assignment since Carl's appointment as division head had gone to people with personal connections to him. Brian Walsh, who got fast-tracked to senior associate last year, his LinkedIn profile showed he'd gone to Ohio State the same years as Carl. Jennifer Morrison, who landed the Prime Johnson Industries account. A quick Facebook search revealed she was Carl's next-door neighbor growing up. Kevin Phillips, who got the cushy Microsoft partnership role that should have gone to Bill Rodriguez. Turns out his dad coached Carl's Little League team back in the day. I found the proof in a 20-year-old newspaper article about Millfield's championship season that someone had digitized and posted on the town's Historical Society website. Meanwhile, the people who actually drove results, my team, the folks who stayed late to fix client emergencies, who innovated solutions that saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars, were getting token raises and empty promises about next quarter's opportunities. But I wasn't the only one noticing the pattern. On Friday afternoon, Sarah Williams knocked on my office door and closed it behind her. Never a good sign in corporate America. "Jim, we need to talk," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Sarah was one of those people who could read a room like a book and had zero tolerance for political bullshit. I've been here 8 years, and I've watched Carl systematically ignore every qualified candidate in favor of his personal Rolodex. This Tommy situation is just the latest middle finger to everyone who actually does the work around here. I lean back in my chair. "What are you thinking, Sarah?" "I'm thinking maybe it's time we started exploring other options. I've got a mortgage and 2 kids in college, Jim. I can't afford to watch my career stagnate while Carl hands out favors to his hometown buddies." Before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I'd been ignoring for months. Diana Palmer, executive recruiter at West Coast Solutions. Diana had been pursuing me relentlessly since last spring, but I'd always politely declined out of loyalty to Pinnacle. This time I picked up. "Diana, sorry I've been dodging your calls. Things have been complicated here." "Jim, I understand completely. Word travels fast in this industry, and I've been hearing some interesting things about the leadership situation at Pinnacle. I think it's time we had a serious conversation." "I'm listening." "VP of Strategic Accounts. Base salary increase of 70% plus equity package and signing bonus. But here's the really interesting part. I'm not just talking about you." "What do you mean, not just me?" I asked, gesturing for Sarah to stay while I put Diana on speaker. "I mean, we want your entire team, Jim. We've been watching what you've built at Pinnacle for the past 3 years. Your client retention numbers, your innovation metrics, your team's productivity. It's exactly what we need to dominate the strategic accounts market." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. Diana continued. "We're prepared to make competitive offers to Sarah Williams, Bill Rodriguez, Lisa Patterson, Kevin Murphy, and Jennifer Walsh. Full packages, salary bumps, signing bonuses, equity participation, the works. We want to transplant your entire operation to West Coast." I looked at Sarah, who was staring at the phone like it had just offered her a winning lottery ticket. "Diana, that's a hell of an offer. But why now? Why all of us at once?" "Because talent recognizes talent, Jim. And because we know that what you've built isn't just about individual contributors, it's about team chemistry, shared processes, and institutional knowledge. You can't replicate that by hiring people one at a time." She paused. "Plus, we're not stupid. We know what's happening at Pinnacle. Carl's nepotism problem isn't exactly a secret in this industry. Half the executive recruiters in the city are circling like vultures, waiting for his best people to get fed up and leave. And you want to be first in line." "We want to be the only line, Jim. We want to make this so attractive that you don't even consider other options." After Diana hung up, Sarah and I sat in silence for a long moment. 70%, Sarah finally said. "Jesus, Jim, that's not just a raise, that's life-changing money." "For all of us," I pointed out. "She's talking about moving the whole team. What do you think the others would say?" I thought about Bill Rodriguez, our technical operations wizard. Bill had been with Pinnacle for 6 years, had saved the company literally millions through process automation, and Carl's biggest acknowledgement of his contributions had been a $500 gift card to Best Buy and a mention in the company newsletter. I thought about Lisa Patterson, who managed relationships with our 3 biggest clients and somehow kept them happy despite Carl's interference. Lisa had been passed over for promotion twice in favor of Carl's connections. I thought about Kevin Murphy, whose forecasting models had become the gold standard for the entire industry. Kevin had built tools that competitors were trying to reverse engineer, and Carl treated him like an interchangeable data entry clerk. I thought about Jennifer Walsh, who had relationships in this industry going back 15 years and could walk into any competitor's office tomorrow and bring half our client base with her. "I think," I said slowly, "that we should find out." "You want to approach them?" "I want to approach them carefully. This has to be their decision, Sarah. No pressure, no manipulation, just information and options." "And if they say yes?" I smiled. "Then Carl is about to learn what happens when you mistake loyalty for desperation." That weekend, I spent Saturday morning in my home office, staring out at the backyard where my kids used to build snow forts, trying to wrap my head around what Diana was proposing. This wasn't just a job change, it was corporate warfare. And if we pulled it off, it would be the kind of power move that gets written up in business school case studies. Linda found me there around noon, coffee gone cold, still staring at my laptop screen. "You've been in here for 3 hours, she said, settling into the reading chair next to my desk. "What's got you so focused?" I told her everything. The bonus situation, the nepotism discovery, Diana's offer, the possibility of taking the entire team to a competitor. Linda listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or raising an eyebrow. "So what are you thinking?" she asked when I finished. "I'm thinking this might be the chance we've been waiting for. Katie's tuition, your art studio renovation, maybe finally taking that trip to Ireland we've been talking about for 10 years. And you trust this Diana person? I've checked her out. She's got a solid reputation, and West Coast has been growing aggressively. They're not just making promises. They've got the budget and the business plan to back it up." Monday morning, I started the delicate process of approaching my team members. This couldn't look like a conspiracy or a coordinated attack on the company. Each conversation needed to feel natural, organic, like the kind of career discussion that happens all the time in corporate America. I started with Bill Rodriguez. Bill was brilliant, the kind of technical mind that could automate processes other people didn't even realize were inefficient. He'd been with Pinnacle for 6 years, had revolutionized our data management systems, and Carl's response to his innovations had been a pat on the head and a gift card. "Bill, hypothetical question," I said, stopping by his cubicle during the Monday morning coffee rush. "If you could work somewhere that actually recognized your technical contributions, how interested would you be?" Bill looked up from his triple monitor setup where he was debugging some code that would probably save the company another $50,000 annually. "Jim, I've been updating my LinkedIn profile for the past 2 months. The question isn't how interested I'd be. The question is how fast I could start." Next was Lisa Patterson, our client relations specialist. Lisa had personal relationships with executives at our 3 biggest accounts. When they had problems, they didn't call the main number. They called Lisa directly. She was the human face of Pinnacle Systems for about 40% of our revenue. "Lisa, can we grab lunch today? I want to run something by you." At Romano's Italian Bistro over chicken parmesan and Chianti, I outlined Diana's proposal. Lisa listened quietly, occasionally asking questions about salary ranges and equity participation. "You know what the crazy part is?" she finally said. "I've been expecting something like this. Not this specifically, but something. Carl's been making it pretty clear that loyalty doesn't count for much around here." Kevin Murphy was having lunch at his desk, a sad sandwich and a Diet Coke, when I approached him on Tuesday afternoon. Kevin was our data analysis guru, the guy who built forecasting models that had become industry benchmarks. His algorithms had helped us predict market trends that saved clients millions and earned Pinnacle a reputation for strategic insight. Carl's acknowledgement of Kevin's contributions. Kevin was still working in a cubicle that was smaller than Tommy's office. "Kevin, got a minute? I want to talk to you about something important." I'd learned to read Kevin's expressions over the years. When he was processing complex data, his face went completely neutral while his brain worked through the numbers. "That's exactly what happened when I explained Diana's offer. Let me make sure I understand this," he said after a long pause. "West Coast wants to hire all of us as a team with significant salary increases and equity participation?" "That's right. And they're specifically interested in the forecasting models and process automation systems we've developed here. They want everything we've built, Kevin. They want to transplant our entire operation." Kevin was quiet for another moment, then smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from him in months. "Jim, do you know what I'm making here? After 6 years, 2 major innovations, and model systems that competitors are trying to reverse engineer, I'm making $78,000 a year. My nephew makes more than that managing a Target store." "I know, Kevin. That's exactly why we're having this conversation." The last piece of the puzzle was Jennifer Walsh, our strategic account director. Jennifer had been in the industry for 15 years, had relationships that went back to her first job out of college, and could walk into any competitor's office and bring clients with her. She was also the most politically savvy member of our team. If anyone could spot problems with Diana's plan, it would be Jennifer. I found her in conference room B on Wednesday afternoon, preparing for a client presentation. "Jennifer, when you're done with the Morrison Industries prep, can we talk? I've got a proposition that might interest you." 20 minutes later, Jennifer was staring at me like I'd just suggested we rob a bank. "You want to move our entire team to West Coast Solutions? I want us to consider the option. Diana's made very compelling offers. And you've talked to the others?" "Everyone except you." Jennifer leaned back in her chair, drumming her fingers on the conference table. "Jim, what you're describing isn't just changing jobs. This is corporate kidnapping. It's corporate recognition," I countered. "Recognition of value that Pinnacle has been taking for granted." "And Carl?" "Carl made his choice when he gave my bonus to his hometown buddy. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment, then laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You know what? Fuck it, I'm in. Just like that? Jim, I've been carrying this division for 8 years while watching Carl promote his drinking buddies and college roommates. It's time someone recognized what we actually bring to the table. Diana worked with the efficiency of a military strategist. Within a week, she had preliminary offers drafted for all 5 team members. The numbers were staggering, not just the salary bumps, which ranged from 45% to 75% depending on the role, but the comprehensive packages that included signing bonuses, stock options, and benefits that made Pinnacle look like they were operating out of the Stone Age. But Diana's real stroke of genius was the timing. She scheduled all our final interviews and offer negotiations for the same week, the week immediately before Pinnacle's biggest quarterly presentation to the board of directors. You understand what this means, don't you? I asked her during our final coordination call on Friday evening. I understand exactly what this means, Jim. You're not just changing jobs. You're sending a message to your entire industry that talent recognizes talent, and nepotistic bullshit has consequences. The interviews were largely ceremonial. West Coast had been researching our division for months. They knew our client relationships, our innovation metrics, our team dynamics. More importantly, they understood exactly what our departure would do to Pinnacle's competitive position. By Thursday, all 5 offers were finalized and accepted. By Friday, we had our resignation letters drafted and our timeline coordinated down to the minute. But I wanted Carl to understand the full scope of what was about to happen. This wasn't just Jim Patterson leaving with a grudge. This was the systematic dismantling of everything he'd taken for granted while he was busy playing hometown favorites. I decided we would resign sequentially, 30 minutes apart, starting at 9 a.m. sharp on Monday morning. Sarah would go first, then Bill, then Lisa, then Kevin, then Jennifer. I would deliver my resignation last at 11:30 a.m. after Carl had already watched his entire division evaporate. The weekend before our coordinated exodus, I took Linda out to dinner at Antonelli's, the upscale Italian place where we celebrated our anniversary every year. Over osso buco and a bottle of Chianti, I told her about the final timeline. Are you absolutely certain about this? She asked, cutting into her veal. There's no going back once you pull this trigger. Linda, I've never been more certain about anything in my professional life. We're not just changing jobs, we're making a statement about value and recognition and what happens when you take good people for granted. And if it backfires? It won't backfire. Diana's got everything lined up perfectly. West Coast has been planning this acquisition for months. They've got office space ready, equipment allocated, support staff assigned. We're not jumping ship, we're boarding a yacht. That Sunday night, I sat in my home office and printed out 5 copies of our coordinated departure timeline. Each team member knew their role, their timing, and their script. We weren't going to be vindictive or unprofessional, just clear, direct, and devastating. Monday morning was going to be very interesting at Pinnacle Systems. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I was at my desk, pretending to review email while watching Carl's office through the glass partition. He was in there with his morning coffee and what looked like prep notes for the board presentation, completely oblivious to the fact that his world was about to collapse. At exactly 9 o'clock, Sarah knocked on his door. Carl, I need to speak with you. I'm submitting my 2 weeks' notice. I watched Carl's face through the glass as Sarah handed him the envelope. Confusion, then concern, then something approaching panic as he realized this wasn't a routine career move. Sarah walked out, made brief eye contact with me, and gave an almost imperceptible nod. Phase 1 complete. At 9:30, Bill knocked on Carl's door. Same professional demeanor, same envelope, same 2-week notice. I could see Carl's hands shaking as he accepted the second resignation. By 10 o'clock, Lisa had delivered her resignation. Carl was now standing behind his desk, pacing like a caged animal. Kevin walked in at 10:30. By this point, Carl looked like he'd aged 5 years in 90 minutes. His tie was loosened, his hair was disheveled, and he was making frantic phone calls between resignations. Jennifer made it a clean sweep at 11 o'clock. When she walked out of Carl's office, she paused at my desk. Your turn, boss, she said quietly. He looks like he's about to have a stroke. At 11:30, I knocked on Carl's door. He was slumped in his chair, staring at the 4 resignation letters spread across his desk, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Jim, thank God, he said, looking up with desperate eyes. Please tell me you're here to explain what the hell is happening to my division. I sat down across from his desk and placed my envelope on the surface between the 4 others. I'm here to resign, Carl. 2 weeks' notice, same as everyone else. He stared at my envelope like it might explode. His hands were visibly trembling now. This is about the bonus, isn't it? he said, his voice cracking slightly. Look, I can fix this. We can revisit the numbers, maybe find some additional compensation. There might be discretionary funds available. This isn't about money, Carl. This is about values and recognition and basic professional respect. His hands were shaking as he opened my letter and read the standard resignation language I'd drafted. Where are you going? He asked quietly. All of you. West Coast Solutions. They made us an offer we couldn't refuse. The color drained from Carl's face. West Coast wasn't just our competitor, they were Pinnacle's biggest threat in the strategic accounts market. And now they were about to acquire a complete operational blueprint, along with the institutional knowledge and client relationships that had taken us years to develop. Jim, you can't do this, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Those are our clients, our processes, our intellectual property. Those are my relationships, Carl. My processes, my team's innovations. We built this division while you were playing favorites with kids from your hometown. He slumped back in his chair, the fight going out of him like air from a punctured balloon. What do you want, Jim? Name it. Salary adjustment, promotion, additional responsibilities, a seat on the executive committee, whatever it takes. I stood up, straightening my jacket. I want you to understand something, Carl. Leadership isn't about title allocation or bonus distribution. It's about earning respect, developing talent, and making decisions based on merit. You never learned that lesson, and now you're going to pay the price. I walked toward his door, then turned back for one final observation. Oh, and Carl? Tommy's going to need a lot more than family connections to handle the workload we're leaving behind. Good luck with that. The next 2 weeks were absolute chaos. Carl scrambled to reassign accounts and responsibilities. But here's the thing about client relationships. They're personal. When Jennifer called her contacts to inform them about the transition, most of them asked pointed questions about following her to West Coast. Same with Lisa's portfolio and Sarah's established client base. By the end of the first week, 3 major clients had formally requested contract modifications that would allow them to terminate their agreements with Pinnacle if their preferred account managers were no longer available. 2 others had already initiated discussions about switching to West Coast Solutions. Tommy, bless his heart, was drowning in responsibilities he couldn't possibly handle. Carl had thrown him into the deep end with accounts worth millions of dollars in annual revenue, and the kid had no institutional knowledge, no established relationships, and no real understanding of the complex technical requirements these clients demanded. I actually felt bad for Tommy. He was working 18-hour days, surviving on energy drinks and sheer panic, trying to manage workloads that our entire team had handled collectively. It wasn't his fault that Carl had used him as a pawn in whatever hometown loyalty game he'd been playing. The board called an emergency meeting on Thursday of the second week. Pinnacle's stock price had dropped 12% in 10 days as word leaked about the talent exodus and its potential impact on the strategic accounts division. Industry publications were running articles about corporate brain drain and what it meant for companies that couldn't retain top-tier talent. Carl tried everything. Expensive consultants, emergency hiring initiatives, promises about comprehensive restructuring, and new leadership development programs. But you can't replace 18 years of collective institutional knowledge with PowerPoint presentations and panic hiring. Meanwhile, at West Coast, we were hitting the ground running like thoroughbreds out of the gate. Diana had orchestrated everything perfectly. Office space, equipment, support staff, integration with existing teams. Our first week, we landed 2 new clients who had been considering Pinnacle but decided to wait and see how the transition played out. The second week, we officially acquired one of Pinnacle's biggest accounts, Morrison Industries, a manufacturing company that Lisa had been managing for 4 years. When their CEO heard that Lisa was moving to West Coast, he called her personally to discuss transferring the contract. By the end of our first month, our new division at West Coast was generating more revenue than we had at Pinnacle during our best quarter. We weren't just surviving the transition. We were thriving in ways that hadn't been possible under Carl's leadership. 3 months later, I got a LinkedIn message from Tommy that I'll never forget. The subject line read, "Thank you, and I mean it." "Jim," he wrote, "I know this might sound crazy coming from me, but I wanted to thank you for what happened. When you all left, I was terrified. Carl dumped everything on me, and I was failing spectacularly. I was working 20-hour days, making mistakes that cost the company money and generally proving that I had no business getting that bonus. But here's the thing, it forced me to either sink or swim, and I decided to swim. I've been taking night classes in business management, working with a mentor that the new division had assigned, and actually learning this job instead of just coasting on whatever connection Carl thought I had. Carl got fired 6 weeks ago. The board finally figured out what everyone else already knew, that he'd been making decisions based on personal relationships instead of business merit. The new management team promoted me properly this time based on actual performance metrics and a structured development plan. I earned it this time, Jim. Really earned it. And I have you to thank for showing me what real leadership looks like, even if it took me a while to understand the lesson. I had to respect the kid for that message. It takes genuine character to acknowledge your mistakes and work to fix them, especially when you could have just blamed other people for your failures. As for Carl, I heard through industry contacts that he was having serious trouble finding another executive position. Turns out, when you build a reputation for nepotism and lose an entire division to your biggest competitor, the job market isn't particularly welcoming. His LinkedIn profile still says he's exploring new opportunities, which is corporate speak for unemployed and getting desperate. 6 months after our exodus, West Coast promoted me to regional vice president. Sarah became my director of strategic operations. Bill launched an innovation lab that saved the company $3. $2 million in the first quarter through process automation. Lisa, Kevin, and Jennifer all received senior leadership roles in their respective specialties, along with equity packages that made them legitimate stakeholders in the company's success. We weren't just surviving, we were building something better than what we'd left behind. The real victory came when I saw the annual industry reports. Pinnacle's strategic accounts division had lost 60% of its revenue in the year following our departure. They'd hemorrhaged 8 major clients, and their remaining accounts were being managed by inexperienced staff and expensive external contractors who charged premium rates for substandard work. Meanwhile, our new division at West Coast had become the company's most profitable unit and was being featured in business publications as a case study in strategic talent acquisition. But here's the most important part. Everything we did was completely above board. No stolen intellectual property, no breached non-compete clauses, no legal gray areas. We simply took our skills, our relationships, and our work ethic to a place that valued them appropriately and recognized our contributions. That's the thing about loyalty. It has to be reciprocal. For 18 years, I'd given Pinnacle everything I had. I'd mentored young employees, worked weekends to fix client emergencies, and consistently put the company's interests ahead of my own career advancement. But when the moment came to recognize that loyalty, Carl chose hometown connections over proven performance. So I chose to take my talents, and my team's talents, somewhere that understood their value. A year later, I'm sitting in my corner office at West Coast, looking at quarterly reports that show record-breaking performance across every metric that matters. Sarah just closed the biggest deal in company history. Bill's innovations are being licensed to other firms. Lisa bought her dream house with her signing bonus and equity dividends. We built something extraordinary. Not just for ourselves, but for our families, our careers, and our industry. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. And sometimes when people don't appreciate what they have, the most powerful thing you can do is take it somewhere it will be valued. Carl learned that lesson the expensive way. Tommy learned it too, but he was smart enough and humble enough to grow from the experience. As for me, I learned that after 18 years of being loyal to a company, the most important loyalty is to yourself and the people who truly deserve your commitment and respect. That's a lesson worth a lot more than $65,000. That's a lesson worth building a career on.
Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to. There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger, maybe I'll learn how to speak, but for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection, now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, alone.